Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second Ecodaco online conference. I'm very happy to see many people joining this discussion today, and to see that many artists are also in the room. We had over 100 registration from 26 countries, so we are excited to meet everybody today. My name is Johan Flock. I'm the director of FACE, one of the Ecodaco partner, and I'm gonna very briefly present myself if in case we have people with a visual impairment in the room. I'm a white man in my 40s with growing brown graying hair and with facial hair. I'm wearing glasses to be able to read. So today I'm joined by many people from Ecodaco, but also many people from our dear colleague project, European Beyond Access. And this conversation is brought to you also thanks to the partnership we have with Allround. Allround that is live streaming this conference today. I'm going to give you a couple of house rules, housekeeping, just to make sure everybody is on board. The first thing is to make sure that you are muted, just at least at the beginning of the conference. You will have plenty of opportunities to interact with the participants, with the speakers, with all of us during the conference. But at the beginning, we ask you to remain in silence. But you can, of course, put your camera on. We're happy to see faces and smiling faces. It gives us a lot of energy. What I need you I'm very happy to walk you through the structure of the conference. We will start, as I said, with input from two artists, but we will have the opportunity to go into breakout rooms and to exchange in smaller groups before going back into plenary. The idea for us today is really to allow all the participants to be active and to engage in this conversation. It's a very particular conversation because we are focusing today on body politics. And as we know, body politics is not exactly a new concept. The politicization of the body is not a new phenomenon. And in recent years, I would say it has taken quite new urgencies with the global rise of I've selected like the worst words to say, the longest and most trickiest words, but authoritarianism, uh, many backlash against, gender rights and queer rights, the climate crisis, struggles with racial and disability justice have been on the forefront of the political discourse, but also the artistic discourse. Um, at Ecodaco and at European Beyond Access, I guess these two projects are very interested in the representation of the body. Ecodaco is a partnership that is working a lot to create spaces of artistic research for collectives of artists investigating many themes and topics that are very close to their heart. And Ecodaco is a project that really support the making of new work for artists that are deaf or with disabilities. And these two projects have a lot in common in the sense that they are working a lot with advocacy, with redefining or changing the cultural landscape and trying to see how we can influence not only the political level or institutional level, but also the artistic scene on how to make art. I would say for today, the what we would like to propose to you is to investigate a little bit the relationship between dance and political activism. So how contemporary dance engage or respond to the political dimension of the body. As we know, the body is not a vehicle or just vehicle for artistic expression, but it is deeply influenced by the political, economic, and cultural context in which they create and perform. So these bodies have quite a lot to say and are saying quite a lot in redefining also many questions that we had in mind when we were preparing this conference. And I can throw a couple of them in the group. What does it mean to create work that is politically engaged in such a difficult climate? How can dance disrupt normative narratives and reclaim the body as a space for resistance, advocacy, and transformation? How can dance interrogate power structures, amplify marginalized experiences, and inspire collective action toward a more inclusive or equitable cultural landscape? I'm very happy that many artists are in the room. We trust artists to be eager to address these questions and to reflect on their practice. But before opening the floor to everybody, I would like to give our two guest artists the floor in terms of sharing their thoughts around body politics. We, when designing this conference, we really would wanted to give the floor to artists continuously throughout the conference. And we are going to use different formats to do that, or different levels of interactions. But for the first segment of this conference, we invited two esteemed colleagues and artists to share their thoughts and to share their thoughts through the lens of their own artistic practice and artistic research. So I'm very happy to give the floor to Philippe Polak first. And to introduce Philippe, I would say just a few words. That he's, I mean, he's an ambassador and expert of the project European Beyond Access, and I've known Philippe for many years now, and had the chance to listen to him in his public discourse. He is a theatre maker, a disability arts advocate, but also an independent curator and a producer. Philippe, you've been very active in presenting work, and especially lately you worked on a project called Freak Show that you presented at the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw, among others. But last year you received a scholarship from the Polish Minister of Culture and National Heritage. And you undertook a series of residencies, including at Ellerau in Warsaw and at Konstanz Theatre, the project leader of Europe Beyond Access. Philippe, are you happy to take the floor?
Okay, yeah, with pleasure. I will try to do my best.
Okay.
Uh, very thank you for this lovely introduction. My name is Filip Pawlak. I'm a wild man in my 30s. I have the ginger beard and short hair. I have the earring in my right ear, and I'm sitting in my office right now. And just adding the fact that yesterday also I was playing Freak Show, so sorry for my low energy today, but it's been a long day, long month or a year. But okay, let's start. I will start maybe more poetically, also to open up a more metaphorical space for conversation. Um, Making art for me is about living close to the spirits, to the ghosts, a belief in being on the sidelines, critically observing the world and showing what is hidden. It's also a belief in the impossible, a bit of fun, magical making on the edge of reality. It is a practice that allows us to ask questions that develop society, including the most difficult questions for which there is less and less room elsewhere in media, politics, and in mass culture. For me, living with a disability is also living close to the spirits. This is a constant balance act with death in a very literal sense. A life that is so uncertain that is it called into a question. Am I a person or an object of pity? In disabled living, the most important questions of the contemporary debate about equality, about the status of life, about human rights, about ethics converge. There are in the middle of all the conversations. The closeness of this conversation that is close to the experience and topics of death, disability, and art seems to be crucial for me, especially during meetings such as today, where we talk about the political nature of bodies. On the outset, I can assure you that I believe in both, in art as the human right and in disability as a form of art. Most often in all of my speeches, my next step is to empathize what a great creative tool disability is, how opening and refreshing the presence of disabled non-normative bodies on the stage is. However, since I'm here to provoke conversation, I will start with a different call. Let's close all art schools. Let's end a professional dance, theater, and art education. Why, you can ask? Because I believe that their function is beginning to diverge from the function we place on art. The function of art schools is becoming the reproduction of elites, the production of prestige, the repetition of the representations of what is already known and recognized. Nothing new. A few days ago, European Access published a report documenting the lack of access to art schools for artists with disabilities. In summary, access is low and the obstacles are enormous. However, reading this report, I wondered again, is this really the only way? Art should open something, should be open, shared, democratic. After all, this is how it functioned in the societies, as the voice of the oppressed, but also as the breath of freedom. Today, in a complex system of market relations and the art market itself, we, as an artist with disabilities, are fighting to enter this market, only to reinforce its closure, this time by capitalizing on our group. I wonder about the rigor of bodies in the dance schools. All that fitness, competence, endurance, struggle, the constant increase of pressure, the production of art, the stretching of bodies towards the impossible, fantastic, incredible figures is closer to the military training than to art. Art that should fill the space that is lacking in everyday life, giving us the space we want and not giving us more of what we already have in capitalism. So let's close the schools, at least in their current form. They defend privilege, repeat aesthetics, and if there is any change, it is only by the periphery, functionally preventing the revolution from going any further. And what about people with disabilities? There is the constant struggle to secure our right to healthcare and fuller social recognition. This struggle consumes most of our resources and energy. The right to culture and creativity, therefore, seems like an unnecessary addition where life and health are at stake. This is still one of the best periods in the history for people with disabilities. After millennia of being killed, maimed, executed, and at best ridiculed, we are finally living in the era in which this group is gaining its rights. And I feel that we are all learning what that really means. slogans and political declarations talk about full civil rights for everyone, regardless of origin, sexuality, religion, body, or ability. I believe in this because I start to engage in art. Part of these rights, it's also rights to the artistic expression. This is to have the voice in the political area. For there is no more political issue than art, especially today, at the time when successive religious, political, and economic radicalism are limiting our freedom to be ourselves. Moment more. By not treating the rights of disabled people to culture and art as equal, we are making only a superficial progress. I'm currently reading the James Baldwin essays from the 1960s. And as I read his criticism of American society and its methods of dealing with the racial segregation, I cannot help but it draws my parallels in my mind with the struggle I'm waging today. This is, of course, a very bold comparison, of course, greatly simplified, but 100 years ago in Europe, the group I represent was denied the right to exist. Eugenic practices and the sterilization of people with disabilities were common. Incidentally, still are legal in several countries, also in United Union. Any discussion of the future, especially in fields such as art, cannot ignore the acceptance of the past. And for disabled people, the past is still on. We are in this dilemma together. I believe that this is precisely why networks such as this today meeting exist, to set ourselves ambitious challenges, to work together, to achieve goals that we do not have the strength to achieve only by as individuals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. Thank you for these words and this very intimate approach to the concept of body politics. It's great that you quote James Baldwin. I have in mind now this quote. He said, "The role of the artist is exactly the same as the role of the lover. If I love you, I have to make you conscious of the things you don't see." Something like that. I'm not sure, but around
Exactly.
this.
I'm exactly thinking about, this quote about giving us the right to sit on the end of the bus. It's not a step forward. It's only a reminder that we still are not treating one of the group equal as others. And that's exactly how I think about inclusion of the disabled dancers towards the center and the mainstream. I'm tired with sitting on the bus and being grateful for that. So for me now, the question is how to dismantle all the system, how to destroy it from the inside, because clearly it's not working. But this is a correct box today. I hope so.
But I like
Thank
that already, since with the first keynote, we have the word revolution pronounced, said out loud already.
Good.
Okay, thank you very much again. And now I really would like to welcome Kam Al-Sakda. Kam, are you here?
Yes.
Yes, wonderful. Yeah, I have many faces on my screen. So Kam, I mean, you were born in Laos, but you grew up in the UK and you've been living in Malmö, Sweden for many years now. And I remember meeting you many years ago, and you were already very active, producing a lot of work, being based in Malmö. You recently turned 50. And it doesn't show, but also it's interesting because this has become also a topic or a research theme for you, and you are exploring aging and dance. And one of your latest project is exactly on this journey, where you are exhibiting and showcasing many research material about this trajectory in a way. So I'm very curious also of the starting point of the inspiring speech that you are going to deliver to us. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. So I'll just quickly describe myself as well. I'm an East Asian man from Laos, and I have black hair that's quite long now. It's tied back in a small bun, and I'm wearing a white t-shirt with the word human written on it, especially for this meeting. Yeah, so I mean, when I found out that I might be doing this keynote, I felt anxious. I needed some time to think it through, to breathe, to let the very idea of speaking about body politics in contemporary dance land in this. When you see this body, my body, what does it tell you? Or is the question, what do you tell yourself? About saying yes to doing this, my body told me I was nervous. I was possibly fearful. Would it be out of my depth? I felt the weight of, not the word body, this word is something I've learnt to be with nowadays with more ease and presence than ever. I'm now 50, like you said. And yeah, it was the other word that felt heavy, politics. Politics feels so fixed and fixated. It's like an invasive prodding on my body. When I say politics, I feel an echo from the moment I began comprehending how so many things affected me and why. And the things that I'm surrounded by, like environments, spaces full of other people's experiences and ways of being, seeing and acting out, opinions, mostly here where I live in Malmö, and then sometimes in other places in and around Sweden or Copenhagen. My husband Andy is Danish, so I have often been there, and I spent most of my life in London and around the UK. Many of my close friends live there. And then there's Laos. I was born in Vientiane, and my family fled starvation. We were refugees in Thailand. And then in the UK, and now back here, now I'm an immigrant in Malmö. But once a refugee, perhaps always a body in refuge. Each place, each space affects me, my body differently as I move through them. I even move in other ways through each of them. My body knows. I've learned to allow different parts of me to be visible, so the politics, this thing that exists outside of me, doesn't attack me as much, blunting the blow. You know, I think it even does and says things to me when I'm not looking, but I can't tell if it's in my mind or actually happening. It's like that quote by Jean-Paul Sartre, when I can't see myself, I begin to wonder if I really and truly exist. It's not totally like this, but it's somehow connected. The doubt I feel because of the spaces I am in or pass through, because people in these environments may look at me in a particular way. It's also important to say, and if this was measured in sound, the loudness is quite high in Malmö and low in London, but sometimes very high. And in Vientiane, also high. I think because I'm loud, but not loud enough or fully or typically loud. What I talk about is also significantly different. Body politics in my dance art circles is for sure the norm, but body politics or even politics in general, let's say in Laos, it's tricky. Some very vocal people disappear. Someone I know from Uganda told me that people don't talk so much about gender rights there. It's not the pressing issue. feeding the body is. Isn't that interesting? Politics, such a daunting word, heavy, makes me feel uninformed, not intelligent enough to meet with it. And then body politics. Funny how it's so easy to say these two words together as though they've always existed in this way. But my feeling, my gut, my instinct, my mother whispering in my ear from her achieved nirvana says body existed first. Body on its own, just being the body, curious, playful, learning, walking, running, dancing around a fire, expressing vibes that connect to the stars in the sky. Ancient body. I prefer how these two words sit together. The way they communicate feels more at ease. Even when there might be some tension, it's still possible for them to have a conversation, to share their stories and to listen to each other. Now, body and politics, body politics, they have a different and quite rocky walk together. They can't help but be in a relationship. It's as if they've been forced into the same room. Today, can one truly exist without the other? I think that's what I'm trying to comprehend with the other word, contemporary, and another, dance. Dance, it describes an action, puts motion into all the other words that precede it. Body politics and contemporary dance. Contemporary dance is a facilitator. These words allow for the perspectives to continually be exchanged, engaged in, developed around. There's a living, breathing sense of process happening here. And I say continually, very on purpose, because isn't that what contemporary means? A way to keep being present amongst the ever-changing chaos of the places, spaces, environments, the world in which we live. My evolving, aging body and how I am relating with what's outside affecting what's inside. My vessel of past, present, and future experiences, always having to have a conversation, thanks to contemporary dance, with politics, whether I like it or not, but knowing how valuable this conversation is. My perspective beside your perspective, or I don't know, 50 to 100 something of you in this space, in a world of billions of perspectives. And through this practice, I'm slowly moving towards an emancipation moment. I'm already feeling it, the feeling of myself just simply being me. Like the time I went to a party and I dressed up in a Chinese style dress, there was no question. I felt myself, I felt joy, I felt safe. The word politics didn't exist that entire night, but maybe it did. I just opted out of the conversation and remembered that I can exist without it. I am body without politics. And through contemporary dance, I create a space to sort through all the perspectives that are existing in one place at the same time, because I'm curious about what it might reveal. And usually it's more questions and abstract things pulled from the subconscious. Past, present, future together and continually morphing and moving forward, ever in conversation, invoking a sense of hope via connection. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cam. Thank you very much for this. I like also very much the way you interlink the past, the family, the body or identity, and how these are like stuck together, no matter the lightness or heaviness of the notions that you weave. Yeah, it's very interesting, very interesting. Thank you for this also approach that you are sharing, and I hope. I mean, I can see that your anxiety or your fear was also very fruitful in a way, that you could share a lot of very interesting ideas. Look, this is a moment where we all are going to be able to exchange more not only with the speakers, but among them ourselves. So the idea is now to go into breakout rooms. So we will spend around 30 minutes in these breakout rooms. And we have 4 facilitators that are that agreed to facilitate and moderate the conversation, basically to make sure that the people have the floor and can exchange ideas in a very horizontal and relaxed environment. So I'm gonna quickly introduce them before we jump into these 4 virtual spaces. So Israel Aloni will be moderating one of the breakout rooms. Israel is the artistic director of IL Dance, based in Sweden, but he is also I would say, the architects behind Ikodaco as a European project. He has been involved in many EU initiatives, including with Transeuropal, our Swedish colleagues from Transeuropal, and he's been doing quite a lot of artistic work, site-specific work, but also a durational performance that is touring intensely, I would say, both just want to have fun. And he's collaborating also with organizations like Toplo Central for a local project called Passing. So Israel, you will be leading one of the conversation or facilitating it. Then we have Teresa. Teresa Camarinha is a creative producer from Portugal. She has a background in theater, dance, and music, and she's been working a lot on artistic coordination and project management, both in Portugal and Europe. She is collaborating today also with Instavel, the choreographic center of Porto, who is an Ikodaco partner. And Teresa agreed also to facilitate the second breakout room. And then with us we have Aniko. Aniko is a key figure in the contemporary scene in Europe. She's the artistic director of Shin Arts Center in Budapest. She's been supporting the independent scenes for many years. I mean, also through collaboration through international networks like EDN, ITM, Aerowaves. She has a strong focus and interest, and I would say a passion to facilitation and horizontal value-based teamwork. So it's a pleasure that she agreed to facilitate the third breakout session. And then the fourth one would be facilitated by Jasper van Luik, based in Utrecht. Jasper has his own dance company, Shift. Shift is also a partner of Ikodaco. We have great people in this partnership. And it's been creating a lot of work, not only for his company, but also for other organizations. And Jasper has been very active in developing a talent professional development program, and is the artistic programmer and leader of the Cafe Theatre Festival. He collaborates with the ETS Festival, the Moving Futures Festivals. I mean, he's very active also. So we are very lucky to have him as part of this cohort of facilitators. So now I will ask our stage manager, Bernardo, to split the room and to set up a clock. In 30 minutes, we will come back together, and I wish you wonderful conversations, thanks to the 2 great inspirational speeches that we had. Thank you. I can see the spaces are moving, the pictures are moving. That's wonderful. Okay. So Jasper, I think the floor is yours. Yes.
Are we complete?
Yes.
I think we're finished. Great to see so many names and so little faces. They're popping up already. Love it. Hi, I'm Jasper. I don't need to introduce myself because Johan did a great job. I think it's good to know. I'm here to just facilitate the space, so the conversation really is yours. I might have a few Kickstarters. We had two great inspirational speeches. I think it's also good to know that there's an Aiko artist here, Destiny of Clean. I hope I pronounce your name right. She will wrap up this conversation in the next session that will be led by Gwyn Emberton, also an Aiko partner. Thank you, Kam Laun. I hope I pronounced your name right as well, for sharing your story. There's a few things of Philip and Kam Laun that stuck with me. With Philip, it was, "Am I a person or an object of pity?" This really struck me, really emoted me. But also, there is nothing more political than art, which I think really hits the tone of the conversation. And then with Kam Laun, I heard, "Once a refugee, always a body in refuge," which struck me about the state of the body, even though the flea has been made, how it affects the body over a longer period of time. And at the same time, "I am body without politics," which I found a beautiful statement to start with. So my first question to all of you, just to get the conversation going, what moved you in both statements or in one particular statement? What struck you most?
Close all the dance schools.
Revolute.
Close them all. Like, just tear them down and do it again and do it over, and then do it right. Like, do it now. That's what struck me.
Have you been to a dance school?
Oh yeah, many.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, I think like 14 years of dance schools in my
Oh.
life. Yeah.
Anyone else? Feel free to unmute, mute, show your face or not. What struck you most from what we were allowed to hear?
Hi. What like struck me most, or like one thing that struck me was that when Philip said that I'm like tired of sitting on the bus and being faithful for it, and it was like I think a very good, yeah, sentence to grab that feeling. And also when Cam said, or like when Cam, you said that like you have this question like in you that, am I like intelligent enough to like enter this conversation, and how like, yeah, how that, yeah, I could like resonate with that. Or like I think many of us have that feeling sometimes, so that was good to hear from someone else as well.
Yeah, I was really struck by the conversation around James Baldwin, actually, and I didn't know that quote, Johan. Of course, I searched it immediately for that quote around the artist and lover and making you understand things you don't see. I thought that was a really, I'm really grateful for that. Thank you.
I was also it really resonated in me, this idea of closing down all the schools, because I think it touches it touches it on this thing of the longer I'm involved in art, the more I sometimes feel that the people that I would love for it to engage with, I'm finding it really hard to reach those people. I'm forever in my art bubbles and always trying to find other communities to connect with, and it makes me question, this, I don't know, that there's a dilemma there, I think, for me. So that really resonated.
Yeah, same for me with the closing of the schools. I was just yesterday talking to a choreographer who loves to develop his work with elderly people, preferably in public spaces. And they told me, even if I would put an installation with elderly people here on the street in Rotterdam, in the Netherlands, many of the people that would pass by wouldn't even look at it because they think it would not be for them. So I think the way we're educated in arts already with an age limit of when can you study dance. General schools have like you can be 23 if you're a male and 21 if you're a female. Like where did that come from? Why can't you study dance when you're 50? It's one of the few educations that has that age cap in higher education. But also the way that we educate dancers or choreographers, we educate them also to form a gap between society and art. In the way that topics are accepted or not in those schools, ways of representations are accepted or not within the image of what dance should look like. And at the same time, the dance sector is complaining about audience numbers degrading, our work not being as popular as, well, more popular art forms as musical or well, digital art forms as Netflix. We all know that one. So we've been educated to live in our own bubble and to grow our art in that, and then we start complaining how it doesn't resonate enough with society. I find that a very interesting dynamic. So the revolution of Philip definitely struck me like, yeah, why not close all the schools and think about how do we educate movement, dance, and experience in a broader context. I was wondering if maybe this group of people had any solutions. How would we start closing down all the schools?
Yeah, my solution to everything is just to do it yourself. Like to start yourself, I don't know, educating, then start your own school. And then have your friends start schools, and then, you know, so build out of that, and then out, I don't know, just what I always do. Like I take up a lot of space, and then more space, and then more space, and then that grows. And then that's the only thing that can actually exist. So maybe like that, I don't know. Like fungus. Or moss, because I'm also very I have a lot of stamina, and I can endurance, and and I'm gonna be around for a long time, like a cockroach, or so. Yeah, so maybe like that. I don't know. That's my first thought.
Yeah, I really agree with that actually, because and I actually see a lot of parallels between what we're talking about in art with politics. This idea of intellect and intelligence has always been something that has scared me. The further I am in my career, the more stupid sometimes I feel, the more, you know, sometimes I feel like I know, you know, sometimes I question myself because of the places that I have to confront, and some of the way that art is, or what is expected of art. But I think also in politics, it's hard to speak politically if you, I don't know, I feel like if I don't have the right education for it. But of course, I'm being affected by politics all the time. I understand I have every right to be able to, you know, try to articulate in the best way that I can about this thing that affects me. Yet it feels like a very difficult place to put myself in, and I think, I don't know, somehow I see some sort of correlation between the way that we handle art and politics, and that we should just do it ourselves. That, you know, let's, you know, tell all the politicians to fuck off. And we can just do the things that we feel like they just take too much time meeting about, and they don't seem to get anything done. That's how it feels sometimes, you know. And I think, at least in art, and at least the people that I know that are involved in making art, they're so hands-on and so active and so energized, and they just, whether you have money or not, you just keep going, and you keep meeting with communities, and you keep, you know, it being, yeah, quite having a lot of stamina and endurance, for sure. Yeah.
I have two reflections that I would like to share, because what you explain, I mean, really resonate and fuel many questions. One is At the same time, you are talking, Jasper, about the decrease of public interest for contemporary dance or contemporary expression live on stage. And at the same times, because of the extreme polarization, it feels that we have a lot of visibility, like many artists or projects that are political are weaponized and are attacked, etc. So that the artist is also very visible in a way in our days. It feels sometimes, not always for the good reasons, but sometimes also for the good reasons, because they stand by ethics, anti-racism, etc. I mean, you have a lot of I don't know, public figures that also take the lead or step forward in defending a lot of values that otherwise I would say would have less visibility. And on the and the second reflection is we are quick in having this kind of us and them kind of attitude, like they, the schools. But in the schools, I mean, I know many teachers or many artists also working in art schools and in dance schools, etc. I mean, they are nice people. They are probably even in this conference, in the sense that I think they truly believe in what you are saying in terms of the the sclerosis of institutions or incapacity to move forward, etc. But many of them are trying to move things from inside in a way. They are trying to be the anarchist or lead those mini revolutions every day in the corridors of the institutions. I don't know. I'm just throwing this. Maybe you disagree, but
No, I
sometimes.
agree with you. I agree with you. And I admire them. Like, I also been working in schools and institutions and trying this, but it's so much hard work. And for me, it's not worth the fight. I don't want to fight. I may look like I want to fight all the time, but I actually don't. Like I don't want to. I want to. So I don't want to end up in arguments on a daily basis. I don't want that. So then when I look at these people that are working in institutions here in Stockholm, at least in schools, I'm super. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So I admire them, but I couldn't do it. So that's why I need to, start my own schools then, because also I don't want to take the fight. It's not worth it. Also.
Like Professor Xavier from the X-Men, which you're wearing the t-shirt.
Show me.
Yeah. Just reminding everyone who is listening that this is an open space. So if you have any reflections, you're also very welcome to share your opinion. I had one on Johan, or no, actually now one on Destiny, which is interesting. I've worked a lot with Artists Institute of the Arts and the Amsterdam High School of Academy of the Arts. And it has been an 8-year battle to get hip hop taken seriously as a dance form within the education, not because the teachers didn't want it or because the students weren't interested, but because directors told teachers and staff a curriculum change takes about 8 to 12 years to take place. So then again, you see that society is moving that much quicker and systems are so slow and unwilling sometimes to react. So I think if you want to make a change, either, start your own school, but also we need those people that are in it for the long run, that are fighting for a change sustainably in those institutions, even though it goes extremely slow. Same with hearing impaired community in Arnhem. They had their first hearing impaired student 3 years ago in the first year, but the whole institution wasn't tuned into what her needs were in order to get that professional education. So everyone was willing and they were trying, but their own systems were in the way of that. So I think it's a great learning curve for an academy. At the same time, you see how far behind we are we talk about inclusion, but in practicing inclusion, you see that we're so not attuned to it. So yeah, it's a very complex system that we're into, that we want to change on all different levels. But I see Ben is unmuted, so I thought he wanted to
Yeah, no,
interject.
I was coming in, well, in response to Johan, I think, and this discussion of the people, of many very committed people within the institutions. And I totally agree. And Philip referenced the fact that we had launched this report, Europe Beyond Access launched this report earlier last week. And indeed, it's one of the things it talks about is the experience of people who are feeling quite lonely and embattled and are struggling because they see the need for change in their institutions, and it's exhausting. And I'm really also aware of what you were saying, Destiny, about just how exhausting it is. I worked for 12 years in a big global institution. And so one thing I'm curious about is how we support those people who are in those roles, how we personally we need them to be doing what they're doing. And something I reflect on is how we can support them and be champions for them whenever we can, because it is exhausting, and sometimes I did it myself. You just have to leave. But we don't want everyone to leave these institutions, because unless we're closing them, we need those people.
For sure. Sonia, you also had something to add.
Yes, hi, sorry you can't see me, but I hope you can hear me.
Sure.
I think this discussion about closing art schools is very interesting. Also, was just thinking how it's also, these are spaces to regulate this, like economic distribution also, I think, which is always a very, very political question, like which bodies do we pay for to see or to learn from, and who pays for that? Like, where's this line between who gets to sustain their living from doing that, and other people that do it like for fun, or and then pay to get that education. So I think this between like community dance or professional dance, all these lines are very interesting. And also in line with that idea of community dance, I think it's also a question of developing other skills for artists, like skills of community facilitation, other ways of teaching and learning to dance, actually. Because I also met a lot of artists who are great artists, but who don't have the skills of community facilitation, which is fine because it's not something you just imagine out of the blue. And I think a lot of the times it's asked from artists to just do something with people. And there are not a lot of spaces where you can really learn that. So I think this is also maybe a thing to think about, maybe changing the curricula of the artists.
Yeah, and in that sense, as a reaction, it's also interesting to see how it is actually very political why those dance educations are in place, because I know in other countries as well, but here in Holland, definitely, there are some schools that have very specific profiles built for specific parts of the dance field in Holland, which are funded by the national government. So, of course, everyone at National Ballet everyone at the National Ballet Academy wants to go either to NDT or to the National Ballet. Everyone at Codarts in Rotterdam wants to go to Scapino or Connie Janssen or to Ohad in Israel. If you look at schools, generally they profile with our dancers have found jobs at these and these and these companies. They haven't profiled themselves as our dancers have created extremely valuable communities, or our dancers are the leading physiotherapists of the world. So what is being funded politically by governments are the companies that the schools are feeding into, and that's sold as the success trajectory. Well, I think a dance education is so much broader and so much more valuable than just being disrespectful, delivering puppets for choreographers to put them on stage.
Yes, it's. I feel as though there's this struggle between having to, wherever you are in the arts, between just trying to tick the boxes that are required. Certainly, as someone that's like always trying to, get get funding for the projects to happen every year, I have to be really strategic, and it's a weird way for me to exist in some ways I've learned to be strategic, but I wouldn't say this is how I naturally would function, but I understand the system with which I live. And I want to be able to get those funds so that I can survive, but also continue to make my work, which I feel is important. And I feel like art is important. So this is constant kind of living in parallel, this dilemma of understanding what I don't know, I guess it is the game that you have to play. But how can you also balance that out with the freedom of being, you know, ethical and you know, taking forward your truth. And yeah, it's a constant negotiation, I think, between these things.
Something that popped up, and let me know, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but politics works two ways. So I think everything in life is a two-way street. Did any artists here ever think about using their political situation to apply for funding to fit in certain boxes?
I just wanted that's funny because I just wanted to comment on Cam's like, yeah, because I refuse to. And I have producers that told me that I'm insane. Like, why don't you push the lesbian artist? Why don't you push the Afro-Swede? Why don't you push it? Why don't you make more art that are
About that.
I don't, yeah. So, and I'm like, no, I don't. And also curators contacting me asking to look at my art, and then it's not, I don't know, African enough or whatever that is. It doesn't really, it doesn't fit what I'm supposed to create looking like this then in Sweden. So yeah, that's funny how your question came. And I refuse to do that for funding. But I would tick so many boxes probably.
Yeah.
Or I am ticking so many boxes. So yeah, I also making wonderful art, and I want to get funded for that and not for how I look, or I don't know.
Yeah. No, I asked this question because this popped up in Holland recently during a big arts debate on the new funding system. We said too many people use the fact that they tick too many boxes to create mediocre art. And then that divided the room in that discussion into the racism spectrum and into the what is quality art spectrum, which I think is an interesting conversation. I think. So yeah, I was just curious. Like, I'm also not playing the gay inclusion card with my art because I don't make work about gay people. I make work about societal topics that interest me, and that should be the quality of art in my opinion. But people told me to push the gay agenda in my applications in order to get more money in, and I was like, I find that very questionable. But I can imagine that all of us have certain specifics that we could push in applications or not, and we can decide to make it about that or not. Just wanted to open the door. I thought, Cam, you wanted to respond. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was very resistant for a long time. I even once I got some funding for the East Asian Choreographer Development Scheme, it was called in the UK. And actually someone made a comment about why I received it, because they didn't feel I was Asian enough to get that grant. But I did get it because other people thought I was Asian enough. Yeah, I was very resistant. But when I did that and I worked with other Asian artists, I felt like, well, actually, you know what? Without even trying, I was already ticking boxes. And I was like, well, that is also the way it is. Even now in Sweden, I don't always make autobiographical work, although sometimes I do. But I think because there aren't many East Asian queer people here making work, I think I probably am under a label after all these years here. So sometimes I think politics, it shelves you in particular places anyway, because, yeah.
just reacting to this because this is very interesting for me. It's the first time I really fully hear that if you are ticking many boxes, you will get more support and more funding, which is so unique because in the rest of the world where I travel, this is so not the case. Like you don't get to tick any box because I mean, first probably there's not much funding for the arts in general, but also this is not the kind of box you want to tick in order to get support from your government or your ministries and arts councils, etc. So it tells something around what is progressive or how society has progressed in a way, and what kind of imbalances some institutions are trying to address, or under representation, which means maybe the artists were loud enough in the past years to say, look, we need to have different ethnicity, ageism is not okay, ableism is not okay, etc. So maybe this is the result of activism, actually, and lobbying all these grant givers and institutions to say you should be more diverse in your choices and you should have diverse jury members or evaluators to make sure that the grants are properly evaluated and take into account the specific backgrounds of people, etc. So it's so interesting. Like today I'm not sure we are complaining, let's not go there, but we are noticing like maybe the institution have been caught in one of the loops of rebalancing. I don't know. I'm just throwing this again on the table.
It's interesting because it also really relates to what we've been going through here. I still think we miss one step in this progression, and it's like we still forget to ask the artist what they want. So, but like I've had this thing in Rotterdam here, we have a company, Theory. They work with people with different physical disabilities, and they have to produce in a certain format. So they have to have theater tours to get their funding in and stuff. And in theaters, they feel that people come to watch the people with disabilities. They don't come to watch the concept or the inspiration of the piece. They come to watch the people who are unrepresented on stage. So I was talking to the artistic director, and he told me, well, with the last tour, you could have just as well put us in a zoo, because you put us in the position of you're framing us in your system and telling us now we're well represented because you got the money, instead of asking us what do we as artists need in order to create the art that we want in the places that we want people to experience that art. And that's a step that funding bodies and politics generally skip. And I'm sort of dominating the conversation now as a facilitator, and that's horrible. But
but maybe we can ask, because we don't have we have 1 minute
we
left.
have many voices here still, yeah.
And I can see like Victoria, Marisol, George, Rachel, Jordana just joined, Matilda.
Jordana.
Yes, many people haven't taken the floor.
And now they won't.
And now they won't.
And now they
really?
won't. Yeah.
Can I say something
Sure.
again? Sorry.
Sure.
I feel like I'm saying too much as well. I was thinking it's to do with the risk. I feel like people don't want to take the risk. They're scared about listening to what artists want, because artists will always just say what they want, honestly. And I feel like perhaps that's a bit scary to politicians. I don't know. And also, I think people in charge of institutions. Ben, you were saying about how can we support the people that are still choosing to be there, and I'm like, actually, I think it's the people at the top. It's really to do with them, and can they take the risks, and can they be open-minded, and can they ask the questions that they have to ask? And I think many of them are also, of course, under pressure from the people above them even, right? It's like a trickle down of rules and legislation and whatever that prevent us from having the real freedom, I think, to just do the right thing. sometimes. And I think that's why, yeah, let's not even knock down the schools and rebuild. Let's just do our own thing. And new communities and new ways of thinking. I think that's just maybe the only way to do it.
I think that's a beautiful closing statement. I see everyone is coming back. So thank you very much for the conversation.
Thank
and I'm
you.
going to give the floor back to Johan. Thank you.
Yes, I think everybody's gradually coming back to the main room, to the plenary. I hope you had interesting conversations. Probably a bit of frustration because 30 minutes is short. But the good news is we are going to continue. It's just that we propose everybody to have like a 3-minute break, you know, to grab some water, to go and pee, whatever, you know, have a cigarette if you need it's bad for your health. And then we come back together like in at 5, like at 12 past 5. Okay? So you can cut your sound in and camera and we will start again in 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, I think it's 5:12. So we are a little bit late, but we're on time. And we're ready to continue the conference. So thank you all for your conversation. I'm sure they were interesting, and we're going to hear about them and continue the conversation all together. So for this next segment of the conference, I'm going to invite Gwyn Emberton to join. I can see his face. He's ready. Gwyn, I'm going to introduce you to the group, but then I will let you introduce the artists that are going to share their takeaways and insights. So, Gwyn, you're the artistic director of John the Dance, and this is also how we know you. I mean, I know you because you are contributing to the two projects in a way. You are contributing to EcoDeco as you are a creative producer and a choreographer for Skånska Dance Theatre in Malmö in Sweden, but you are also collaborating to Isle Dance, so collaborating to EcoDeco projects. But you yourself an artist and a choreographer, and you've co-founded the John's the Dance company based in Wales. And you've been producing work for many years, not only in the UK, but internationally, and now also in Sweden. So we are very lucky to have you facilitating this next segment. So I give you the floor, Gwyn.
Thank you, Johan. Hello again, everyone. So I will, maybe how I will do this is that I will just give you a brief introduction to each of the artists, just a one line of each of them, and then I'll invite each of them to introduce themselves a little bit more fully, and then give a little bit of a roundup of what we've been discussing in each of our groups before we go dive in a little bit deeper. So first up, we will have Anna. I hope I say your surname right, Zeppes, who is a theatre maker and facilitator developing community-based participatory projects, and is based in Budapest. And is particularly intrigued by the theatricality of public spaces, reversed hierarchies, somatic interactions, and gentle methods of practicing resistance. We will also hear from Destiny Afklin, who is based in Sweden, and whose work is rooted in social care and has a genuine interest in people, and is a clear activist and on a clear political perspective. We will also hear from Alice Giuliani, who is an Italian dance maker, an Italian dance performance artist based in Brussels, and from Alessandro Schiattarella. I hope I have pronounced your surname correctly, Alessandro, and who is a Swiss Neapolitan choreographer, performer, and disability advocate based in Basel. So first up, I'll ask Anna to jump in, and if you'll give a little bit more of an introduction of yourself, and then just you can give us a roundup of what your group was talking about. That would be lovely. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And maybe I do this quick introduction that I'm a white woman in my early 30s, and I have curly brown long hair and piercings and earrings. And I'm also talking from my own room with plants from Budapest. And what more to say? You were pretty much explaining the basics of my practice, which is theater education, and working in long-term processes with different, usually marginalized groups, and devising theater pieces many times in non-traditional theatrical settings together with them, and sharing their stories in different forms. So that's what I do. And this is my 5 minutes for the kind of summary and reflection. Okay. It was too interesting what my group had been talking about, so I would prefer to give a small summary, which was kind of starting from reverberating the thoughts of calm, about coming from places and then arriving to different spaces. So having our roots in different spaces than where we arrive to work at, and the difficulty to enter these culturally different settings and surroundings. So people shared different experiences about this, and also this weird phenomena that our presence can be by itself perceived as political just because of our origins or our way of upbringing. And we ended up talking about also the responsibility of creating possibilities for other people to enter these structures, which was super interesting to me because many of the people who shared in our groups are already working in leadership positions, let's say, or choreographers of big institutions, and how to tackle this question of who is visible in an institutional structure, who is getting the stage, who is heard, and what is our role in giving these positions to others in a situation where we ourselves are also struggling because of our bodies or our identities to get into those structures and to adapt to them. And here where Philip's thoughts are also coming in, should we dismantle all these structures? Yeah, and these tough decisions. And then Israel brought in a very interesting perspective that we cannot only look at humans as bodies, but also organizations or institutions are bodies. And we can kind of relate to them in a way that we are entering in a dance, in a shared movement, like we are viewing our existence in these institutional spaces as a social choreography. And maybe it's not a coincidence that dancing people or moving people are many times creating a difference in these institutional structures, because if we are, as Camille also mentioned, we are not necessarily expressing something with our bodies, but we are coming back to the present moment, grounding ourselves in our breathing. And as Alexandra also shared, maybe also inviting our colleagues to connect better to their bodies. Maybe these ways of connecting or ways of communicating are becoming more easy together. Maybe for a first round, this is what I would like to share from our group.
Thank you very much, Anna. That was great. Lots of things to pick up there, I think. Next up, if we can have Destiny, and if you could also include a brief description of yourself as well as your little bit of an expansion on your biog, that would be great, Destiny.
Hi everybody, thank you for having me. I'm Destiny af Kleen. I'm a Afro-Swedish woman with in my late 40s, and I have black curly hair and lots of piercings everywhere. I am also wearing an X-Men t-shirt, especially for today. I'm hardworking dance person. I facilitate a production place here in Sweden that's called Dansplats Skog, where we house residencies, and I mean it's in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the forest, in a place that's called Forest, Skog in Swedish, and it's like a diamond in the forest. And what that place does is that it draws people to it, with or without me these days. But that's also part of my artistic practice, is to draw people in to whatever I'm doing. So that's me. I want to talk more about me, I think. Yeah. So I work in Sweden as, yeah, let's say it, Black woman choreographer. And I'm also mother of 2 white passing children. My body and my work and my family form like an embodied archive. Sometimes I think it's an archive of tenderness and contradictions somehow, which I'm using a lot. I'm working from Sweden, and in Sweden there's a strong narrative of equality, like a myth of sameness. So that's why I want to keep talking about me, because I am seen before I'm heard most of the time. And I don't choose to be political, but my body is already politicized all the time. So for me, body politics is a choreography imposed upon the body before it begins to dance, actually. So I'm coming from that. Now you kind of know. And in our group, I don't know, I think I talked a lot also in our group, but we talked about this closing of the schools. Let's do it, close all the schools. And then we're building our own schools. And then I can start, because I'm good at starting stuff. So I can start, and then we build more and more schools, and then there's this only thing that can exist. I said fungus, I said moss. I said that I had a lot of endurance. I'm going to be around for a long time. We talked about that. We talked about then these people that are working in the institutions and all the admiration I have for them, for their stamina, and for doing this hard work job from inside these institutions, and how we talked about how we need to support them. We talked about ticking boxes and refuse to tick the boxes, and how the boxes are made from activism, how it's like, I don't know, it's blood. The boxes exist, and people bled for these boxes to be able to have a box that says Black female choreographer, and I don't even want to tick it, you know. So that's what we talked about. I'm reluctant to tick it. I'm thinking a lot about this choreography that is body politics, and how especially since I got my children, it feels like I need to at least get closer to that box, to ticking of the box for them, because otherwise, because they see how people look at me. I don't really fit in, and everything I do, I don't know if you read my bio, I dance with horses. I sing and dance with unborn children. I get lost with my audience just to find myself. Like all of these things I do because it's a research for belonging. I'm trying to belong in this country. Like I'm trying to belong all the time. And so it's a research for that. And having children and seeing how they see how people look at me and how they look at us together, that really triggers this maybe necessity of wanting to tick that box. Then
thank you, Destiny. Again, lots in there. 2 hours for a conference on body politics is very ambitious, isn't it? There's so much to understand and to get into. Next up, if we can have Alice, or Alice, sorry, that probably would be the correct way of saying your name, right?
Alice is good. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. So my name is Alice, and I'm a white woman. I'm 31, but I feel like a teenager forever. And I have brown hair, tight, shaved on the side, and messy bang. I'm a creep and a spoony person. So I have an invisible disability and chronic illness, which has been like very interesting to work with also in the dance and the body. And I'm mainly performing for other people. So I really play a lot this game of like changing myself and disguise myself a lot to serve a bit also the rules or the game that other people are creating, let's say. But I'm also starting to do my own work because I feel it's very important in a way also to land in our own body. And I've been dealing a lot also with passing and gaslighting because of the invisibility of my body. So it's two aspects that are very important for me. Voilà, just to give you a little information. And I'm in Brussels at the moment. So just to jump back to the conversation that we had in the group, we kind of wrote down something that resonates for us from the intervention. And one of the first quote was from Cam about the body without politics. That it seems something like so in a way ideal, that it's really like something impossible, but that kind of everyone dreams of, or maybe some people more than others. So then there was a bit this thing of like is it really possible to think the body without the politics, and who are the body that are also dreaming about that, and in a way a bit this feeling of that some bodies can in a way dream about not being political, or they have the privilege or maybe access that, and other no, they are always considered political. And then there was also this question of like who, like the as a political body, like can I choose how much do I want to be political, and who is putting that pressure? Like if I'm a disabled artist, can I make a work that is not about disability? How much do I have to share about myself? And I think this was very interesting. We also, someone said about the like this tiredness of political body, that it's like it's powerful, but it's most of the time also very tiring because often the rules comes from the system, and the system can be very heavy. I'm just reading a little bit what I wrote down. So then we had this like also the question of awareness, like how can we build this awareness upon the body to feel this responsibility of being political, and how to use the body. And so we kind of zoom out from like the body to the system, and how like there are also different contexts. We have the I don't know, artistic one, but then what does it mean for a political body to be in the bureaucratic one? And how as someone said about this, like navigating spaces in between, like every context, every constellation of people and system can also affect in a way our identity, or how we pass in the system can change quite much. And then we, like as a second topic that we had a little bit of time to discuss, was the idea of dismantling the schools from Philip. And at first there was a quite big excitement, like, yes, that's the best thing to do. And in a way I also resonate with this feeling of like I feel for a lot of disabled people, it's like the idea of school, it's not even in the back of your mind. So destroying or not maybe wouldn't change even much because there's no access, or it's something that is built throughout time. But then also like we had like kind of reflection on how actually all these education places can also be places for like playground for further inspiration. So yeah, it depends a bit on the background and experiences of everyone. So yeah, this was a bit what we've discussed in the group. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. And last but not least, Alessandro, if you will give your description and also introduce yourself a little bit more, and then fill in what we talked about in our group in full disclosure.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm a white man having a black beard and my usual sailor hat I'm wearing today 2 circle earring on both ears, and I'm wearing a yellowish shirt. I'm in my living room in Basel. I identify as disabled. This thanks to an invisible disability that touched my hands years ago. And I have been a dancer for many years, and since also 10 years I do choreography. And my main subject, let's say, in choreography is to dismantle ableism under all possible perspectives. Since a year, I co-direct a platform in Switzerland called This Frame, supported by the Migros Kulturprozent. And within this platform, we have several initiatives. One is a tour, a Biennale tour that goes to 4 cities, but we're trying to make it bigger. And we also aim in some ways to sneak in the Swiss system more and more and touch more institutions and affect them, infect them, change. I don't know. You got the point. So about the group in which I was in, I think we started from one question. This made a snowball of many other questions. So the starting point was, how can dance reclaim the body? That's what Johan first asked. This led us to how to own the narrative of the body and how to be in control, knowing that sometimes we go on stage and the narrative is being put on us even before we can do anything about it. Maybe to be in control of this narrative on the point of view of a performer would be to communicate or to establish a communication with the maker. I would add there, from my experience, yes, it's of course, communication is one of the first factors, but it's still important to think about the leadership and how this acknowledge these collaborations in order to give space to other type of narratives. Then we spoke about this shift of ownership, or when we start in a way, like identifying ourselves in a way, but then through years to experience, to changing the position, let's say, in society, this also shifts. And so this made us think that we are all in a changing process, and these narratives are also changing. And this is quite important to allow this to do, but also to be, let's say, flexible in order to respond to it. Then other question came up about representation and leadership and creating the conditions for the leadership. Maybe when you are in a position of power in an institution, how do you make space for other people? And then also we get some question around who gets visibility and who produce. What does it mean to program as well, and for whom? Like whenever we think also that the audience is part of this discourse, how do we include the audience in this process? Then I shared also about my experience of producing as a choreographer in Switzerland. And I was explaining or sharing the fact that for me, in a way, the label of working with a disability helps to fill in a way, a case that we know. I think I can imagine all our contexts are very competitive, and I'm pretty much aware that this label helped me to sustain myself within the field. So it's both something that at first I was a bit afraid of, but then I started to embrace it and really try to stick to it because it's a way to survive the market, I'd say. Yeah, then I was also thinking about what Philip said, destroy the system because it's not working, and this also completely agree. My approach, maybe I'm Italian, but I got a bit more Swiss in the last year. It's more diplomatic, let's say. I would try to be in this institution, also in my position, and to see how we can slowly dismantle it from within. And this I also realized because in my experience, I'm coming from this mainstream environment. I was a dancer with in the Béjart Ballet Lausanne at first, and then in these big groups. So I kind of know what it means also to be there. And I know also how hard these people work. And I also, when I go to watch these works, I feel like, wow, it's really cool when some of them, or sometimes I also feel like, oh, wow, they're always doing the same things. And they're not bored about this eternal repetition. Anyways, yeah, this makes me think that probably, at least for me, it works not the fact of breaking something, but to say, okay, this exists and it's beautiful, but maybe that's not the only thing that exists. And so to open up the fields, the doors, because also I realize through my journey that when you create somehow defensiveness in people, this kind of doesn't work. And I think in our field we have to make things together with allies, and to do that we need a big deal of in a way, I don't know if diplomacy or communication, maybe that's more the word. We need to be able, I think, from my perspective, of communicating with people that have a different perspective from us, and also acknowledge that things exist and we might in this life not be able to see a change to this one lake, for instance, or these big groups. Yeah, therefore that was my approach to kind of sneak from within and to slowly scratch it.
Thank you, Alessandro. Just so that we've got a few minutes for others to jump in a little bit, I think I would like to actually jump from this point that you've left with, thinking about what is it that we can do to quote Johan from earlier, to reimagine the political future. So is it about dismantling, and how might we do it? So is it about allyship, and also I was struck a little bit, this is two parts to this. It's also about whose responsibility is it? Is it on us as the artists, or is it on the structures themselves? Because the word that really resonated with me from Destiny was reluctance. The reluctance to be political, and it sort of feels like it. I was thinking also. I think it was Anna who said, it's about artists taking on the additional roles of leadership and having to dismantle the structures themselves, but also artists need to be making the work themselves as well. And I'm sort of really curious about what it is that we need to be able to do that, because we all feel the desire. There is a desire for the structures that exist at the moment do not work, and what do we need to be able to make the work that we want to make, but also to reimagine these new structures. If anyone would like to jump in with such a small question.
I agree with that, Alessandro. It's Destiny here, that we need to sit down and talk to everybody. Like everybody is important, we can't just shoot Trump off and then we're going to be happy. Like everybody, we need to listen to everybody. But for me, and just from my perspective, is that I have fought so much. I can't fight anymore. I don't have the energy. I just want to go in with love and positive. Like I just want to go and do things, and so that's why I just rather do it myself, I guess, because the fighting is done for me. I can't fight. I end up in endless like on a daily basis arguments with people on a daily basis. Like that's just, I don't know, it's killing my soul actually.
So that we're not all killing ourselves. What maybe people have already started to see the possibilities there. What so that we're ending on a positive note or something to look forward to the future. Again,
I would love to share something if possible.
Yeah,
Sorry to cut you
I
off.
don't know who that is. Oh, yeah.
I'm Luke here. I'm a dancer researcher, sorry, based in Athens. I'm
Give a
a
description of yourself. Yeah.
yes, I'm a white man in a very dark room with curly hair. I would say in answer to this question about what does it mean not to fight, and also to really hear what you're describing, Destiny, of this exhaustion in this kind of battle, I think really actually as dancers, as choreographers, as facilitators, culture workers who want to think about what fight we are in, for me, it's very much come from the research that I do here is in folk ritual and cultural dance practice in the Balkans. And these are amazing communities of people who are some of the most amazing dancers I've ever seen, who find themselves, because they meet in a place that is in a location specific to their culture, to their history, and they want to dance together. They're also very good at organizing protests and boycotts and occupations and meetings. They are incredibly well-networked people to do political work. And what I think is expressed in these spaces, often in more bureaucratic spaces or managerial spaces, is this sense of isolation. And I think that is likely precisely because this kind of work, international work, detaches us from the communities that are around us that will be able to transform our day-to-day lives and what we see and what we experience. And that, I don't think that's just a fairy tale. Here in Athens 2 years ago, the students in the drama schools occupied the National Theatre for like 2 months. So these are real networks of people that are actually our allies. And I think often we feel alone in a bureaucratic battle, but there are these networks out there, and maybe we have to be a little humble sometimes to go to spaces that are not funded or supported in the ways that we would like, because this is where living culture, I think, can really be found.
Thank you. That's really, really great. Luke, the idea of being local and local community is. Does anyone else have any other thoughts, or if they're busy with something around this already? Or
I just wanted to say about time, like that we need to work faster, not take more time. We have taken a lot of time to dismantle these systems. And yeah, I agree with Destiny that there should be much more of that exploration and fun and happiness and joy.
Can I just also add something? This is Kamlan speaking. There's actions that are, overtly connected to, I don't know, targeting, I guess, what's happening politically. But there's also just socializing with, like, I don't know, people that are open-hearted and open-minded, and that go out into the world and give good energy as well. Now I feel like that, that helps me continue to be interested in living and making work. I know it sounds really basic, but actually I think it accomplishes a lot. I think it's really powerful. Some days I might feel down, and then I still manage to get out there because I actually know some really great people that care. And that encourages me to continue. And this is changing and dismantling things in a world that's quite aggressive. So the softness of these wonderful, things that I know that many of us experience, let's not take them for granted. I think they're really powerful, and they achieve and do a lot. And as much as I also complain, like many people, I complain, it's because it's difficult. I really hold on to those things. They're really valuable and something to kind of, champion.
Thank you, Cam. Lovely. I'm curious to know if there are any other ways that people are working, or modes that people have been busy with, that it feels like this softer way, or this dismantling it from a different perspective.
I feel urged to add something to this, if I may, just a short thought. I've been thinking about how to dismantle this system that doesn't work, but I have this feeling that it's something that needs to come from individual's inner self. Like we have to dismantle these our own systems, know where our prejudice come from, our fears, and not and know why our defense mechanisms comes up and when. So I feel when individual is in the right position, then the collective might be a reflection of that as well. That's all.
I just want to share a positive example from this weekend, that in Budapest, in front of the parliament, there had been a dancing protest because of current political issues happening, and there were tens of thousands of people just dancing in front of the parliament. And I think this was the most popular protest in a year or so, after the Pride demonstration, which also attracted hundreds of thousands of people, because it was for the community to just be in the movement together and enjoy themselves together. And this kind of community and love and togetherness and just a social event had a bigger demonstrating power than many shouting and really demonstrating protests before.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. I've witnessed something myself recently, where the two different groups of women have come together, and where spoken language is a real barrier, but I saw them at the beginning of the process, and only 6 weeks later, there was something in their physicality that they share together that goes beyond the words or the lack of words that they have between them. And there is something about moving together and sharing a physical space together that has quite a profound ability to connect to other human beings and to each other. And so this, we all know, we're all dance people, right? We all know what dance can do to ourselves individually, but also then collectively on a bigger scale. So maybe it's mass protest through movement that we're looking at. I think I probably now need to hand it over, unless anyone's got any last burning things that they would want to say. Johan, maybe I will just hand over to you.
Yes, maybe just a last from the facilitators. If you have a last thing you want to share, like I see Israel, Aniko, do you?
I can say one thing, which is Israel speaking.
Yes.
I am interested in this idea of dismantling versus perhaps other modes of metamorphosizing, repurposing, redistributing, deterritorializing. There are other modes and forms, and I think that sometimes because we are trying to defeat someone or something, we become so good at practicing what they have been practicing. So in relation to that, I'm interested in the notion of hacking, and rather than destroying what there is, to actually reprogram what there is in order to do the things that we want it to do, rather than what it is programmed to do. And I think that this is a very interesting approach, because in some way it continues an organic evolution or continuous development, rather than investing a lot of effort and time on trying to dismantle or abolish or what have you. So I think that this is quite interesting. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think hacking can maybe teach us something about what else is possible or what other ways, including language, for example, rather than being bound to the limitations of language, think about how we allow ourselves to do things with language that it's not meant to do. Yeah, that's just a thought.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Israel. I don't know, Annika or Teresa, do you want to add something? No, everything was said already. Well, thank you. I mean, thank you for facilitating this conversation. And I'm also thanking Jasper, who had to leave the virtual space to go in a physical board meeting space. And I want to thank Gwyn also for facilitating this segment. So look, for the last few minutes, what I will do is very easy. I will give the floor to our dear colleague Ben Evans, working for European Beyond Access. It was many times we had the heard about the during our conversation in the small breakout rooms, the work that EBA is doing, and we thought maybe we should give a few minutes to Ben Evans to present the latest updates, the latest news from the European Beyond Access. So Ben, the floor is yours. Oh, we don't hear you. I think your mic is not working.
It worked earlier. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Technology. Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Ben Evans. I am a tall white man in my mid-40s with short brown hair and a ginger beard. And today I have a jumper with a giant lobster on it. And I'm a disabled arts manager, and I'm the project director of Europe Beyond Access. And I'm so grateful for this event today and to be witness to the conversations. Our work on Europe Beyond Access is fundamentally about who can dance, but also through that about what dance can be and reimagining what dance can be. So I really value this conversation about politics and the political body, but also how that and disability aesthetics can really expand the language of contemporary dance, challenging narrow ideas of virtuosity or opening new artistic possibilities. And I'm just so aware, and this of course has come up, that simply by existing, by having disabled bodies, it's therefore fundamentally disruptive within the dance sector. So reclaiming space, disrupting norms and transforming the sector is what we're about. We are political. And we've talked a little bit today about the political body. Certainly what we do as a project, we also have really overt political work through lobbying. We run an international network called the European Arts and Disability Cluster. And this has members in 26 European countries, all either independent disabled artists, associations working for disabled artists, but also mainstream institutions, all of whom are developing professional opportunities. And right now, actually, just as we speak now, a colleague of mine is in Brussels at a round table with the European Commissioner advocating that artists with disabilities are considered within all of the next 8 years of programming that they're looking at the European Commission. Because fundamentally, when we're talking about the politics, actually who gets money, how we attach criteria around accessibility to funding is really the only way to change the sector. So that's happening ongoing. But also within our European Arts and Disability Cluster, a lot of that is work to support individuals who are doing the really tough work. I was so glad that Destiny, you named that exhaustion of fighting the system. I think a lot of our colleagues feel that. And so actually sometimes we just need to find these networks not to do action, but to support each other. Last week, we launched a major report into the accessibility or inaccessibility of performing arts education institutions across Europe. Philip mentioned that report right at the beginning of the conference. The report doesn't recommend the dismantling of all education institutions, but it does give a lot of really thoughtful detail and evidence of what we've known, of course, forever, is that these institutions replicate ableism. So take a look at the Europe Beyond Access website. And just in conclusion, I think the future is around partnership. We're so grateful for this partnership with iCodeco. We have an associate partner in Big Pulse Dance Alliance. Our aim is to use our networks as they grow to influence and change the conversation around, as I said, who gets to dance and what dance can be. So yeah, we bring awareness to where access is limited, but also awareness to this growing artistic movement. So hugely grateful for to be here today and for our collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And we have, we're sending our thoughts to Lorena, your colleague, who was really, it was a fruitful discussions to exchange on our respective projects and what we could do together. And I'm sure these conversations will continue. So, well, 1 minute left. Enough time for me to thank everybody who was contributing to the conference. I mean, of course, EBA and iCoDaco partners that were heavily involved in the design, but also in contributing to the facilitation of this conference. And I want to thank especially our colleagues from All Round streaming the conference, but also Bernardo, who was being our stage manager today, and our colleagues from NCI, who were captioning all the conversations. I want to say that, of course, this conference will be available online, and we'll make sure that all the ones that registered have an access to the recording and can receive more information if they tick that box. So thank you again, everybody, and be soon online for other iCoDaco or European Beyond Access events. Thank you.